Hi, my name's Tegan. I'm here at Jacob's Trading Yield Rock Shop. I'm the local jewelry making expert. If you haven't heard of Jacob's Trading before, be sure to check out the link below and find out all the wonderful things we do here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about stretch cord bracelets. It might seem like a pretty easy thing to do to tie a bracelet, but I have a few tricks up my sleeve that I'm going to show you in order to make your bracelet last a very long time. So to begin with, we are going to begin talking about the type of string you're going to use. My favorite use is this crystal stretchy string that we sell on our website. There are different types that you can use, but this one's my favorite because I just find it very durable and long lasting. Other kinds that you can get, like in this bracelet here, are fibrous. So it's kind of hard to tell in the video, but this one, there's two strings, but if I pulled this apart, it's actually fibrous and it has multi-little strands all kind of strung together. What happens with these, I find, is it'll catch and it'll slowly fray on the bead. So if you have other spacer beads like this metal one, it might rub back and forth on certain spots and it's going to slowly wear down. And I'll find that these fibers will break down over time and eventually break. With the crystal thread that we use here, it doesn't have those fibers to break. So over time, it's just gonna maybe, the elastic itself will wear down, but it honestly takes a really long time. I've had certain bracelets that I have that I wear, I'm kind of methodical, I wear pretty much the same ones every day, but I find that over time they really last a long time before they break. Usually it winds up in me grabbing them by accident on something to snap them instead of them just letting go. So that's why this is my favorite to use. So the next thing you need to consider while you're making your bracelet is the size of the stretchy cord. For today I've chosen a 0.8 millimeter stretch cord. We also sell it in 0.5 millimeter and 1 millimeter. When you're choosing this, you need to determine how big your beads are and how big the hole of the beads are. The beads I'm using here are a tiger's eye stone, and the holes they have on the inside are about 1 millimeter. So our 0.8 stretch cord fits in there nicely. If you have smaller beads, like say if I was using 4 millimeter beads, these ones are 8, I would use a smaller stretch cord like maybe the 0.5. Next I'm going to show you how to tie your bracelet. There are a lot of different ways that you can do this, but the method that I've come up with I find works best for me. To begin with, you're going to want to make sure you leave yourself a nice long end of your cords. You don't want to cut it too short and conserve your stretchy cord because it's going to make it hard for you to tie. So you want to leave a good few inches on the end. The first knot I do is just an overhand knot, so one over top of the other, under the bottom, and pull tight so your beads are now touching. While you're doing this, it's very important, if you have long nails, to not ever pinch your stretch cord. Don't grab it with your nails and pull. What this is going to do is leave a kind of a dent in your stretch cord, and it's going to be now a weak spot where your bracelet can break. So make sure you're never using your nails, only use your fingertips. From here, now we're going to do that knot once more, so one over top of the other again, so you can kind of create a loop. That's going to go over top and through that circle, and you're going to pull it tight. So I kind of keep my fingers through that loop, and I'm slowly now going to pull tight and remove my fingers as I go, so my bracelet stays nice and tight. And now that knot is nice and on the inside, and the beads are able to touch. You don't want to leave too big a gap, otherwise bracelets can stretch out over time, and if you leave a big gap and you start with one, you're going to wind up with a really stretched out bracelet inevitably. So this first knot, we want to kind of tighten it, shrink it. So I'm going to begin with holding in my thumb and my index finger each of these strings, and then I'm going to pull the bracelet sideways like this. So I have my other fingers, usually my other two fingers, holding onto the bracelet with these two fingers holding up here. And I'm going to pull on all 4 strings. So these fingers are holding onto the bracelet, these two are holding onto the extra thread, and I'm going to pull all 4, and that's going to tighten up that knot. Watch how hard you pull because you don't want to obviously break the thread, but you can definitely shrink that up. We're going to do one more knot. Currently, with the type of overhand knot that we did, when the bracelet gets stretched over time, that knot would like to loosen. So I do one more third knot that is facing essentially a different direction from when you're pulling it. So when you pull, it's actually tightening the knot now. So you're going to put both of your strings together now as opposed to separately. You're going to loop it over your index finger, and you're going to take this through your bracelet, and you're going to create this loop. So now I have it over top of both of my fingers. I'm going to now take this through that loop, so we're going back through that circle.
And since it's attached through the bracelet, as you pull, it's going to just slide on down at the base of the knot. Same thing, you're going to want to pull on all 4 strings, except now we can pull them in pairs. So one set with these, the other set, the 2 attached to the bracelet, and you're just going to give that a nice tight little tug. Next, we're going to talk about finishing your knot. So a lot of times people will just leave it like this. Over time, this knot still can loosen with wear as it's getting pulled over and over and over again. I like to use crazy glue to finish it. So pretty much any crazy glue will work. I just use these little disposable tubes. People do use other types of glue. The issues with other glues I find is, like, some people will use hot glue. Unfortunately, with the type of stretchlet cord we're using, it will actually potentially melt your stretchy cord. Another thing that people use is nail polish. I find, unfortunately, clear coating it with nail polish is meant to hard dry. It's not meant to flow or absorb. So what it's going to do is crust over top of this knot, and then over time, once again, that's going to crack and flake off, and then it's not actually going to help protect that knot. Another one that some people want to use is like plastic glue, where it physically melts it. I would once again be worried that it's going to over melt it. And there are other options with epoxies and the like, but they take too long to dry, and you don't want your knot necessarily drying to the beads, because then you're going to have trouble with it flowing. So crazy glue, all in all, I find works well because it dries quick, and it will actually soak into all the little areas in the knots. So it'll help bond all parts of your knot as opposed to just the surface. So what I end up doing is pulling on this knot so it's away from the beads, and I'm going to wrap it around one of my other fingers, usually my ring finger, and I'm going to wrap this around a couple times and use kind of my other fingers. You have to get all your fingers involved here, and you're going to hold on so that it's kind of pulling that knot away. Should have opened my glue first, but that's okay. So we're going to stretch that once more, and then you're going to get in there with the glue, and you only need a little bit. So you're going to just touch on there, rub it around a little bit, and then let that dry. Normally I would breathe on this to help it dry. Crazy glue actually bonds with moisture, so if you blow on it lightly, you're actually going to help it dry faster by adding a little bit of moisture. Alright, so we waited for our glue to dry, and it's now dry to the touch. It's not sticky anymore. We're now going to clip this extra string down, because obviously you don't want to be having all this hanging off of your wrist. So we're going to stretch that away from the bracelet, and we're going to cut it down. So you don't want to cut off a long amount that's still sticking out. Because of the procedures we had in place with cutting or with tying it really tightly, we don't need to cut it with a lot of extra. You can cut it pretty close. You don't want to cut right flush to that knot, but you do want to leave maybe about 1 to 2 millimeters, and you can just cut that down. Even then, probably a hair closer than what I did. So we're just going to clip that. I did actually add in 1 spacer bead into my bracelet, so as you're designing your bracelet, one good thing to be mindful of as you're designing is having a spacer bead that has a larger hole. So what I've done by adding this at the end of my bracelet is I have a really nice place that my knot can hide. So it's now underneath that bead as opposed to sticking out kind of awkwardly in between a set of beads. And there we have our finished bracelet, nice and strong for lots of wear.
Alright, that's everything for today, guys, talking about stretchy cord. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more of what's coming out every week from us here at Jacobs Trading, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you have any questions for me, feel free to comment below, and I'll try to get back to you and answer your questions. Cheers, have a great rest of your day, guys.